Welcome to this talk. Happy you're here. I'm happy to be here at JFall 20 years. This talk is called Prepare for Jakarta EE 11, and I have subtitled it Performance and Developer Productivity. This is not the official slogan yet, but the more I repeat it, maybe it will be. So my name is Ivar Grimstad. I'm the Jakarta EE Developer Advocate at Eclipse Foundation. And if you want to connect to me during the talk, or after the talk, or at any time, feel free to reach out on any social media of your liking. I'm usually fairly responsive. I'm a member of all these open source communities. I'm a Java champion, and I run a Java user group in Malmö in Sweden. I'm from Norway, by the way, but I live in Sweden. So let's just do some little short history. You're probably very familiar of this, but so we're on the same kind of thing. In 2020, we released Jakarta EE 9. And the big thing with this release was the JavaX to Jakarta namespace. And you're probably, if you're a Spring developers here. Yeah, so you're probably working with this, or at least know about this namespace change, because it affects the migration from Spring Boot 2 to 3. And that was the thing with that release. We kept it to the minimums to make it simple. We did a 9.1 in 2021 as well, but that was just to upgrade the TCKs to run with Java 11. Then we had Jakarta EE 10 came out in 2022. And the big new thing there were the new CDI Lite sub-specification and the Jakarta EE core profile, the possibility to combine to native using core profile. So that was kind of the big thing about 10. Otherwise, it was modernizing the platform and making it more ready for future things and keeping up with things. We didn't do 9 because we did want to keep the namespace thing isolated. So we did a lot of kind of refinements there. And that brings us to 2024 and Jakarta EE 11. And we don't have a nice, flashy logo yet. So what will this release bring us? And that's why you're here. So let's see if we can give some clarity to this. And the goal here is to release it sometime during summer next year. Jakarta EE is all about specifications. And specifications, we have a specification document, some PDF or HTML document somewhere that defines the technology. We have an API that you can get from Maven Central, which is the interface you as developer would be using. And we have the test compatibility kit, or the TCK, that will test if an implementation fulfills the requirements of the specification. And if it fulfills the requirements and passes the TCK, it is a compatible implementation of that specification. And we need at least one open source implementation to ratify a final specification. This is kind of what we're working with. And as I said, Jakarta EE 10 came out in September last year, so it's a little bit more than a year old. And Jakarta EE 10 had all these updated specifications. The blue ones here are the updated specifications, so you can see most of them got some updates. There were refinements here and there, and some new cool things in some of them. And the new specification was CDI Lite, which is not a specification on its own. It's actually just a subset of CDI, but in order to kind of show that it is part of core profile, we put it there as a separate specification. And if you compare this chart to Jakarta EE 11, you see there are also kind of the similar amount of blue things. So there are new things and one orange there, a new specification as well. So the kind of amount of updates in 10 and 11 are very similar if you just look at the what's updated. So these are the specifications that will receive updates in Jakarta EE 11, the blue ones here. The gray ones are still relevant, but they're not receiving updates in this release. They may be updated later. So let's go into some details about this. Of course, in Jakarta EE 11, we do have the platform, as we always have had. And we also, if you take a subset of these specifications, you have the web profile. And the Jakarta web profile is more of the traditional web application kind of style. So you have specifications for it has all the persistence and transactions and security and stuff, but also the web UI things. So you see the web profile is also getting a lot of updates, and notable here is that data or Jakarta data is a part of web profile as well as the platform. And also the core profile will be updated for Jakarta 11. There are no new specifications, there are only updates to the existing ones. Maybe the biggest thing we're doing with Jakarta 11 is that we're raising the Java SE API level. And we're kind of taking a leap here because Jakarta 10 is based on 11, or it's compiled to 11, or even 8, some of the APIs. And we require Jakarta 11 or 17 to certify. Most runtimes support 17 and higher. But at 11, we're raising the API source level to 21. And that means that you have to go on 21 in order to use it, otherwise your code wouldn't compile. So we're kind of pushing everybody up on 21 by doing this. And this is to make the specifications that want to pick up features up until 21 to pick them up. We're also defining the release cadence here. And what we're trying to do is to release a specification of Jakarta EE about 6 to 9 months after a LTS release of Java. So Java 21 was released in September. That means around June, July, we should be able to get a version of Jakarta 11 out. And we're doing something new here this year as well. We're doing a milestone at December 5th. And this is not an arbitrary date. This is the date of our Jakarta 1 live stream conference. So if you want to get some more updates on Jakarta 11 and a lot of other things, we have a full day online conference on December 5th. So just Google it and sign up there, and you can watch some talks or all of them. It's a full day. And we're doing this milestone, and all the some of the specifications are already out with milestone releases in Maven Central. So this milestone release is really targeting the implementers. So we're not requiring a implementation or a TCK for this one. We just want to have the API and the documents out with some changes since last version. It's not the final one, it's a milestone. But if you want to look at it, if you want to try it out, you can, because we're publishing it on Maven Central. And as I said, around June, July is what we're going with Jakarta 11, and hopefully it will be performance and developer productivity. And let's see if we can meet these two things. We're doing some cross-cutting concerns across the specifications, or kind of the cleaning up things. And one of the things we're doing is we're getting rid of managed beans. We're taking it away and replacing it by CDI. So managed beans has been around for a while, and it's been used by some of the specifications here and there, and now we're just taking it away and using CDI. Those that use managed beans will use CDI as a component model instead. The security manager is deprecated in Java, in JEP 4.11. It is still there, it can still be used. What we're doing is to remove every reference to the security manager in the specifications. This doesn't mean that if you're using the security manager in your Jakarta EE 11 or Jakarta EE application today, you can still use it after 11 as well, but it won't be supported by the specifications, but the implementations that support it today will probably still support it. So it will be on implementation level, so you don't need to remove it or change or do any changes until the Java SE removes it. But we're just not referencing it from the specifications. It's kind of a cleanup thing. We're getting ready for it to be removed. We're also kind of getting a little harder on the optional features. The specification can still have optional features. And today we have optional specifications in the platform. And optional specifications are specifications that are not, an implementation doesn't need to implement them. So you cannot rely on it being there if you're moving from one implementation to another. For example, if you're moving from WebLogic to WebSphere, you cannot rely that all the optional features are in both of them. And what we're doing there is to say on platform level and in profiles, we're not allowing anything optional. It's either there or it's not. So the platform project can decide that if some specification has some optional stuff, if that's going to be, when that specification is integrated into the platform, we're saying that either the optional features are not required, or we're saying, okay, this optional feature we want, so we require it. We make it non-optional for the platform. And this cleanup things mean that we're actually taking away these old specifications. They're still there, they're still going to be used, but in the platform, they're not going to be there as optional features. So we don't have an implementation that has to implement all of them. It doesn't really affect the regular developers, because it's probably specifications you're not using, and if you're using it, the implementation will probably still support it anyway. And if you're using it, you're probably using it with an implementation that has it, yeah, so it won't go away, and you're not likely to move to an implementation that doesn't have it. So we're just getting rid of these kind of weird things and make it clearer, simpler. So let's look at some of the specifications. Well, actually, all of them. So let's start with security. And security is it's 3 specifications. We, as application developers, we use security, Jakarta Security 4.0. That's the API for developers. Authentication and authorization are more low-level SPIs for the implementers. You, as application developers, can interact with them if you want to, but there's not really much you need to do because the implementation takes care of it. So there are actually thoughts of merging them together as one specification and just be SPI level for the implementers. So what security is removing any reference to the security manager wherever they have it, and they're clarifying the APIs here and there to make it easier to use. Also, doing some stuff with the lower level SPIs, like authorizations and interceptors for authorization, and abstraction of the permission stores, which is something that we really, yeah, it's nice that they do it because it's easier for the implementers, but for us, it doesn't really matter because we're not affected by it. It just gets clearer, easier for developers. They're also doing some work together with MicroProfile, and some of you may know MicroProfile has support for JSON Web Tokens, and in order to use that in a kind of standard way in Jakarta Security without referencing MicroProfile JSON Web Tokens, because that would create circular dependencies in the system, because MicroProfile JSON Web Tokens reference specifications in Jakarta EE. So together with them, we're creating a MicroProfile JSON Web Token bridge specification that kind of does that integration. So to avoid the circular dependencies, this is something that will happen sort of under the hood. It will just mean that Jakarta Security will have support, full support for JSON Web Tokens in Jakarta 11. And if you want to learn more about the Jakarta Security specifications, it's this URL, and I'll repeat it for all the specifications. It's jakarta.eu/specifications/ the short name of the specification, and then the version number. And if you remove the version number, you'll see all the versions. So it's a very simple to remember URL. So concurrency. And concurrency is actually one of the reasons why we're going on Java 21. And that is because of virtual threads. So in Java 21, virtual threads is available, and concurrency kind of plays along with that. And in Jakarta EE, we kind of have this threading thingy where we're not allowed to interact with threads ourselves, or we shouldn't, right? You've probably been told that, don't mess with threads, because the application server will take care of it for you. And we will use the managed executed service, the managed schedules and context service and everything, and just have everything managed for us. And threads will be pooled or not pooled, or we don't really care. We just use the managed stuff. And we kind of want to have that sort of programming experience with virtual threads as well, even though it doesn't make sense to pool virtual threads or manage them in the same way as with regular threads. So what we're doing in order to support virtual thread is to kind of make it some flags here and there where it makes sense to kind of indicate that, hey, this is something where I want to go virtual or not. So you can do for example, this is a proposal. It's not necessarily going to be exactly like this in the specification, but you can imagine that in the managed execution definition, when you set that up, you will say that, hey, I want this to be virtual where it makes sense. So it will be sort of under the hood things. And Jakarta Concurrency 301, all the information about that one is on this spec page. And there are links to the GitHub repository and the issue trackers and everywhere discussions are going. So CDI, and also by extension, the sub-specification CDI like 401, it's also getting some support. For example, they need to do some changes so we can inject records and field types and treat them as CDI beans. Deprecate some expression language stuff, and add priority on producers. So you can prioritize which producer you should have to produce the beams you're using. So it's kind of a cleanup thing. It's a minor release, so it's not that much of things. They're also doing kind of the same thing as I told you with the JWT bridge. Since CDI, one of the themes of this release is to make CDI a more central component of Jakarta EE. But at the same time, we don't want to require CDI where CDI is not needed. So you may have Java SE versions of implementations that doesn't need CDI, doesn't want CDI. So we need to kind of figure out a way to how to get the integration with the EE, the container things, and not mix it into those specifications that want to only be on Java SE. So they're doing the same thing in creating an integration specification called CDI EE, where this EE integration layer will be, so we don't have the dependencies from the Java SE implementations and the CDI. So they're splitting out. We just have the specification proposals up there now, splitting it out into a separate integration specification to avoid cyclic dependencies and to avoid enforcing CDI where CDI is not necessarily needed. And CDI can be found more on this page. So expression language, they're doing a lot of cleanup and deprecations, also supporting Java records through expression language, and some other cleanup things here and there that are useful for those using the expression language APIs. So Jakarta Faces also has a lot of references to the security manager that will be removed. Rely more on CDI. They are using managed beans or their own component model today, so they will kind of continue that journey towards being more CDI-centric and clean up some of their stuff that is associated with that, and some unused components here and there. So servlet has some references to security managers that we want to get rid of. Add some convenient stuff to the methods here and there. Also, being able to control the status code when you send a redirect, and that's not possible today. And now they're actually adding standard way of doing that. So that's neat for that. And also clarify in the APIs a lot of where there are kind of things that could be interpreted in different ways. Just clarify this is how we want it. And servlet is on this URL. Jakarta Persistence is getting a lot of updates. I'll just list a couple of them here. Here you really need to go and see that issue tracker because that's a long list. And it's mostly convenience methods for the criteria language and to make a lot of mathematical things like summing, finding, you know, rather than doing the SQL yourself, you can do these methods to do stuff for you. So it's getting it really much easier to use all these convenience things. Also, which is kind of controversial, is to replace or deprecate all the old calendar and timestamps and replace it with the new Java Time API. And there has been discussions around this, so it may be that they back on this, but they want to clean up and use the newer versions. So it's getting a lot easier to use. It's not much new functionality in kind of terms of how you use the APIs, but there's all these convenience things that makes life easier. So you can probably replace a lot of custom implementation, custom code, custom SQL with these new methods. Jakarta Pages, and you may also notice here that I'm not calling it JSP or Jakarta Server Pages. And you may also notice a little low here, it's just as validation. What happened to bean validation? So what we're doing with this release is also to clarify these names. Where it doesn't make sense, we just make it easier. It's much easier to say Jakarta Pages than to say Jakarta Server Pages, or say Jakarta Validation than Jakarta Bean Validation, because validation validates other things than beans as well. So we're just making it clearer, so all the specifications are getting the name that they are actually doing. So pages will align with Jakarta Servlet and expression language, and also they deprecated a lot of stuff in Servlet 3.1 that they are going to remove references to it from Jakarta Pages, because Pages are very tightly integrated with Servlet. WebSocket, kind of the same thing. Security Manager is getting removed, and they're doing clarifications and minor updates. And all these specifications are pretty much done. They have some issues here and there left, but they will be fairly complete at the milestone, these Servlet WebSocket pages. So they're a very good state, and we're ready for the milestone. Validation, as I said, renamed from Bean Validation to Jakarta Validation. And there's one item on this list, and that is support for Java records. So they are doing the changes needed to be able to validate records properly. Because there is something about how the order of things of the constructor of the record is called when you hook in the validation. So it's some changes here and there they need to do to kind of specify how it's been done. It's already solved by most of the implementation, so they're just specifying the behavior. Then we're moving on to RESTful web services. It's a major update. And that's because they're continuing the CDI alignment. They're taking away their own injection of resources, for example, and replacing it with, or the at context, replacing it with at inject. So you inject the context of the Jakarta REST application using CDI. So it's been CDI centric, following that theme. And they also, I'm not sure about the status of it, but they are checking out the new Jakarta concurrency to see how are we going to do that for asynchronous services. And also the CDI Lite with the ahead of time compilation. So they want to do things that they resolve on runtime, doing that at build time. So you can compile to native in Jakarta Core Profile more accurately. And more about Jakarta RESTful is found on this page. I talked about the names, right? It should probably be Jakarta REST, and we've tried to get it, but they refuse. They want to call it RESTful web services, so fine. Let's call it RESTful web services. It's a handful, but that's the way it is. So annotations. They have one item on the agenda. Annotations is is the one where the @managed means or @managed annotation is. So remove this annotation. That's the only thing they're doing in annotations for this release. And for interceptors, it's a standard access interceptor binding. This gets kind of under the cover technical. I've never used any of this stuff, but they're adding some default methods on the invocation context interface, which is very useful for the other specifications. I think the security specifications are using this very heavily for the interceptors to the security calls. So this is kind of for the more interested in what's going on behind the scenes kind of updates, but they are important as well. So you may have missed, I skipped one, right? Data. And that's maybe, in my opinion, the most interesting thing with Jakarta 11. And Jakarta data is a brand new specification. We're getting it into 11. We're standardizing the repository pattern for data access. And if you're using Spring today, and you're probably familiar with Spring data, well, this is very similar. And we're also we have people from the Spring team participating in this specification as well. So we're doing it the right way. We have support from the vendors, and there's good things going on. They have a milestone out there. They have an implementation available, and the code will look typically something like this. The @repository annotation is a new one, just indicating an interface is, in this case, a CRUD repository. There are other types of repositories as well, but CRUD repository is one of them. So this is how you would typically use this one. And this is, since they have an implementation, this is very demo friendly. So let's do a demo of this one. So what I have here is a Jakarta 10 application. Since 11 is not available yet, I'm using Jakarta EE 10, but I'm adding here the beta 2 of Jakarta Data API. I probably could have used M1, but I didn't want to mess up the demo just before, because they just released it. So I'll do it right after the talk and see if it works. And the implementation of this one is Open Liberty from IBM. So I'm using the Open Liberty Maven plugin here to just have it in my development environment. And the application is very simple. It's a simple RESTful web service. It has a greeting entity, which is a Jakarta persistence entity. It has the @entity annotation and a ID. And I have this greeting resource, which has a get and a post. These are not implemented yet. I'll do that in a second. And what I'm going to do is to just start this application. Open Liberty has this called development mode. So you can just type the Liberty dev, and it will start, and you will just do the updates as you go. So I'll start the server with this application, and as you see, the greetings list is empty. It just returns an empty list because it is an empty list. So that seems fairly correct. So this here is an empty list. So if I wanted to add Jakarta data to this one, what I do is I create a new interface, and I can call this greeting repository, like this. And once I have this interface, let's add the new repository annotation to it. And we're going to extend the CRUD repository. And it's going to handle the greeting with a primary key of long. So this is all I have to do. I create this interface. I'll go in here, and I'll inject this greeting repository. And I'm going to use it here to return. I'm going to do greeting repository. And what you can see here now I have the find all. I have find by ID. I have find all by ID. I have save all. So I get all these things for free. So what I'm going to do is just find all here. And since it returns a stream, I'll return a list. So I have this You can see the application server just restarts. And okay, I have to restart it since I had a compilation error. So let me just do that. Okay, so it's because I return an empty list. So let's do. Now I've implemented the find. Let's also implement the inject into our database. So I'll use here the greeting repositories. I'll just say I'll call it saved equals greeting repository, and for this one I'm going to save the greeting from the post. So I'm saving the greeting, and then I'll just print the ID of the saved ID to the log here. And then I'm a little worried since I got an error here, but let's see if it works. So I'll just do a post here, and of course it doesn't go. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. This is a demo.
Do you have connected to your data lake?
Do I have a connection to the database? Let me see. I think I did that before. Let me see. So, yes, that works. So let me just see that I didn't do anything stupid here. There's a table missing. Oh yeah, okay. So I'll go here in the server XML and actually say drop table true, but that's fine. Create table says true, so and don't want to drop them. So there you go. Thank you. Yeah. So because last time I did this demo, I had the drop table between every resort, and then every time I did some code changes, it just screwed me up. But let's see here. Yeah, so now it returns an empty list. Thank you for the help. That's why we have audience. That's why we don't do online talks, right? Because if I was sitting at home at my desk here, I was doing, wow. But here I get help. So let's do the and you see I got a 200 here. So I've pushed the hello from Duke message in here. So everything there looks fine. Let's push another one. Let's call this not hello from Duke, but oh sorry. Let's say this is the Mrs. Duke, and hello from Ms. Duke, like this. So I now have two in my list. So say that I'm only interested in messages from Duke. So I want to filter by the name of the caller. But I don't have that option available for me right now. So how do I do that? Well, here's where the cool thing comes in. And I can just go here and I can say, hey, I want to have I want to return an optional greeting in case I don't find it. And I want to call find by name, ignore case maybe. And I'm passing string name. So I'll just create this method in my interface, and then I'll go here in my resource here, and I'll just here I actually have preferred something. So I have this find by name method. So I'll add the path param name to the list, and I'll go use the find by name ignore case method, and just return not found if I don't find it. So now I still have these here. So if I now go here and say, hey, I want to find by Duke, it says hello from Duke. So that's how easy you can use Jakarta data. You don't have to write any SQL or anything. And if I misspell Duke here, write something else, it says not found. So the logic works. So that's how easy it is to use Jakarta data. There are all these kind of language of how you can compose these method names are in the specification. And there are lots of way cooler things than just find by name, but you can do a lot of cool stuff there. And this specification actually comes with an opportunity. Because as I demoed here was the Open Liberty implementation. And that's one implementation, and we're happy for that. It's open source, so it's all we need. But we want more implementations. So if you want to do an Eclipse project for data, or an Apache project, or something, I'm pretty sure Hibernate will support it. Eclipse Link, maybe. But if you feel for creating it's fairly simple specification, and IBM has already done the code in Open Liberty, so I mean, you can look at it. It's open source. So yeah, an Apache project with that implements Jakarta data would be absolutely awesome. We also introduced in Jakarta 11 something called prospective specifications. And these are specifications that are not a little bit more special than others, but there are specifications that we actually voted, should it be a part of the platform or not? And we voted no. Or together we voted no. I voted yes, but the Jakarta MVC is a specification that is very close to being in there. And so we want to kind of list them in the platform specification. They're not optional specification. They're not required specification. They're prospect. So it's something, pay attention to this one, and you may want to implement it because it has the requirement for a prospective specification is that it has a release, it has an implementation, it has an TCK that you can pass. So this is a specification that an implementation can put in their application server, pass the TCK and say, yes, we support MVC. And then maybe it's included in a later release. And I don't know if you follow what's going on the other side with React server components. Like server-side rendering is cool again. Well, what is this? So server-side rendering, this is the future. So it may be there. And it's very easy to use. Jakarta MVC is on top of Jakarta REST, or RESTful web services, with the @controller and @view annotations. That's the very simplest way of doing things with MVC. So it's worth trying out. Jakarta NoSQL is a potential prospective specification, but they don't have a TCK yet. So they kind of have to do a final release with a release TCK, then they could be a prospective specification. So for Jakarta 11, I don't think they'll make it, so it will still be a standalone specification. But it's a very interesting one. It's standardized integration with NoSQL databases, the same way as Jakarta Persistence does with relational databases. This is with NoSQL. So it's a cool specification out there. They have an implementation called Eclipse JNoSQL, and it looks fairly good. And they also implement Jakarta data. So you can use the repository pattern there. To sum up, Jakarta E9 was we did Jakarta 8 as well, but that was just Java E8. So Jakarta E9 was the first release with the Eclipse Foundation. It was obviously about the namespace change. We have some help with the namespace change. So if you're doing the migration and have some old libraries you cannot move over to the new namespace, you can use transformation. So we have the Eclipse Transformer or the Apache Tomcat migration tool that will take the bytecode and transform it for you. So you can just pass in the dependency and get a Jakarta version of it out. You can use it as a Maven plugin in your build system until the library provider gives you a Jakarta version of it. Jakarta 10 is the current release. And Jakarta 10 had a ton of updates. Jakarta 11 is coming next year. The Jakarta data is, in my opinion, the cool thing. Of course, concurrency with support for virtual threads is also cool. And there are lots of convenience updates here and there, and we're just kind of streamlining the platform, making it clearer and more concise. And I hope if we now can move the question marks in the beginning here to see Jakarta 11 will be on Java 21. We have a new Jakarta data specification. It's CDI-centric, and we're doing a lot of removals and deprecations there. There may be other things added as we go, but these are the things I came up with this morning. And the theme, I hope these will With the virtual threads, you will get performance. With the Jakarta data, we'll get developer productivity. So I think these are still a valid way of talking about this release. The major thing is obviously we're pushing forward to Jakarta 21 or Java 21. If you want to learn more about Jakarta EE, you can go to jakarta.ee. All the specifications are under the subdirectory /specifications. I write a weekly #Jakarta EE about what's going on. And the demo code for this specification it's on my GitHub. It's actually a wrong URL. It's called Duke's Data, not Jakarta Duke. But I'll update the slides before I publish them. If you want to learn more about Jakarta EE, you can go to LinkedIn Learning. If you have a LinkedIn Learning account, I have a Jakarta EE overview course there. It's everything you need to know about Jakarta EE 10. If you don't have a LinkedIn Learning account, do just ping me and I'll see if I can get you a free version of the course. And then I thank you for your attention. I hope you will rate the session in the JFall app. And I think we have some time for questions. And I have some nice anniversary Jakarta socks for the 3 first questions. So yes?
Sorry, I had a question, but I forgot it.
Okay, you're in a pair of socks. Anyone else? Yes?
I saw a removal of the expression language in one of the slides. Why is that done?
Oh, I don't think we're removing expression language. I think in one of the specifications in CDI, we're removing the support for expression language in CDI because we don't need it there anymore. I have to look at the details to get it more there, but we're not removing expression language. No, it's just from that specification we're not referencing it anymore. But that's a good question. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, come on, you can say, can I have a pair of socks? Yeah. The relationship with microprofile, it's, for example, the bridge specification for security. So we're doing that to be able to use those 2 technologies together without getting cyclic dependencies. The kind of say the technical relationship to microprofile is that microprofile builds on top of Jakarta EE. And microprofile 6 requires Jakarta core profile to certify. They will loosen up that a little and say they don't require Jakarta EE core profile 10. They will just require Jakarta EE core profile. So the relationship is there that microprofile builds on top of Jakarta EE core profile. Yeah, you can come down here. I can't throw this far. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy the rest of the conference.